As you probably know, there have been a lot of changes recently in the bar exam. So recently, our podcast co-host and senior editor at Celebration Bar Review, Megan Saya, joined me to sit down and talk through what we know as of right now about the upcoming bar exam. I wanted to provide you with a brief bit of that discussion to help you understand what your choices and options might be and where the bar exam stands at this moment. Let's get into that conversation.
Right, so California, we finally got actual confirmation about what's happening there, and it was not a surprise. If you've been listening to me for a while, then this is exactly what I anticipated, which is California is doing the online October 5th and 6th exam. So they will not be having their in-person September exam. It's going to be fully online October 5th and 6th. They have extended registration. It's now open until July 24th. So if you were waiting to find out what California was doing before you decided on taking this exam or the February exam, you do have the ability to register right now. They've been unclear about what's going to happen with people who are handwriting and people who need accommodations. So definitely, if that's you, please contact them immediately to find out what you need to do, what needs to happen for you to be able to take the October 5th and 6th exam if you need accommodations or are unable to take it on a computer. They did relax their requirements for internet. So they said that you don't need what they're calling constant internet. So presumably
internet, I don't know.
Well, how it worked with the baby bar was you had a limited window to get back on. So if your internet kicked you off, you had, I can't remember if it was 3 minutes, it was something like that. It was like 5 minutes maybe, but you did have a couple minutes to get back online again without being kicked out of the test as a whole. And so we're assuming that. Also, they have said that if you are physically in the state of California, you would like a quiet space to take the exam, you should contact law schools that are local to you. Certainly your alma mater if you live near where you went to law school, but even if not, I would try at least contact a local law school and see if they will give you a room to take the exam in. They suggested that. So definitely, it sounds like California is trying to acknowledge the issues that people had with the baby bar online examination. They're trying to remedy some of those problems that people had, which was probably having a safe, secure, quiet place to take it. And then also internet connectivity issues that were brief, but still a bit disruptive. And then the other huge news that was a bit more unexpected out of California, but is really, really good news, is that they have permanently lowered the passing score from 1440 to 1390. So this is not just for the online exam. This is not just during coronavirus. This is going forward, which is really wonderful news.
Yeah, I want to talk about the scoring a little bit. First of all, for those that aren't familiar with California scoring, here's what you do. You take the California number, you divide by 10, and then you multiply times 2. So 1440 divided by 10 is 144, times 2 is 288. That's how you can compare it to New York or Florida or any place that's on a 400-point scale. So California had the highest, or I think Delaware might have had a slightly higher, who knows why, bar score, passing score in the country at 288. By comparison, New York was 266, so 22-point difference. Now with this new change going to 1390, divide by 10, multiply by 2, you get to 278. That's a 10-point scale difference, and that's huge. No other state has dropped their score by anything near that. Oregon and Washington both dropped by 6 points, if I recall. But a 10-point drop is massive. And it now begins to put California in the realm of a reasonable jurisdiction. Now, I'm not quite sure that I would say to someone who's thinking about where should I take the bar exam to rush to California to get that 278. But if you were stuck in California and you didn't have other alternative, if you couldn't jump out and do the UBE somewhere else or anywhere else, take any exam outside of California, 278 gives you a much better chance than you would have had before. So I really like that move. That's a real positive piece. Now, that long term, that will have huge implications, as you said, Megan. In the short run for October 5th and 6th, it's not, when I look at my magic 8 ball, it comes up and says, unclear, ask again. because we're not entirely sure yet with any of the jurisdictions in this October 5th and 6th window how they intend to score their exams. They will all be different. I think all the states that are doing state parts of their exam will be different, and the states doing the Plan B in its entirety from the national conference would be the same exam, but could score them differently. So what that means in California is that we anticipate, though I don't think we know yet, we anticipate 5 one-hour essays, 1 90-minute performance test, and then the 100 multi-state questions developed by the National Conference of Bar Examiners. That's the essence of the test. Now, we don't know what day, what segment goes where, but that's the essence of it. So how do the examiners get to that new 1390 or what I call 278? Well, I think what they're going to do is that they will scale the essays as they have before. That is, they will compare them to the mean, and they will give them a score, a raw score, and then convert it to a scaled score. The question is, what do you do with the multiple choice? When you don't have 200 questions, now it has to be point for point. So how many ever raw questions you got correct is, I think, going to be your score. I don't think you're going to get a scaling bump the way you would have on a 200 question MBE. That means scoring is a wild card today. Now, remember, we're talking mid-July here. By the time we get into August, I would hope we'll know more. And certainly as we get further and closer to the exam date, we've now got until October 5th. So we're, 75, 80 days away. It's still quite a ways away, which is a little weird, isn't it? But I know there are going to be a lot of questions about, well, what score should I get? Or what do I have to, we don't know. We won't know until the examiners in each state tell us how they plan to score this exam on October 5th and 6th. I also want to be clear, if you're taking the bar exam on July 28th or September 9th or September 30th, that's not the problem. That's a regular bar exam. I mean, that's a full-length, full-on 200-question MBE plus whatever parts of the exam have always been there, and nothing changes as far as your scoring goes. We're only talking for those jurisdictions that are switching to October 5th and 6th. And I think we're going to see, in fact, we started to see it already in the last 24 hours, more states switching to this October test. So it is an open question. Hold your fire for a little while and keep studying. And I think you would want to emphasize this too. All the same material is testable.
Yes. Yeah. The only thing that's different is it's 100 fewer multiple choice questions, but it's not like they took out a subject or two. It'll just have fewer questions in each subject, but all subjects will be testable, will be seen on the exam. So yes,
right.
Study the same.
Yeah, and the 100 questions are multi-state questions. They're written by the NCBE. Now I want to compare that or contrast that to Florida.
Yes.
Florida's going to give 100 multiple choice questions not written by the NCBE, which means that they're probably Florida based. So if you're a Florida bar taker, don't get confused by this. None of this applies to you. You can go pick daisies in the lawn for a few minutes because this is not about you at all. Today is California and New York Day. And so in that circumstance, you need to be ready for multi-state and essays and performance tests if you're a California bar taker for October 5th and 6th. And if you hadn't registered and you were thinking of sitting out, I think you should sit in. I think you should jump into this test rather than waiting for 2021. What's your view on that?
Yeah, definitely. The score's lower. They've given diploma privilege to, like a lot of places, the people who are the recent graduates who haven't taken the bar yet and failed the bar. So certainly there's a good chance that a lot of people are going to sit out. I just don't think everyone we talked to from the online baby bar had a really positive experience with it. I just don't think that there's a lot of downside to taking it. Registration's still open. You can do it. There's really, I don't see a huge downside, to be honest.
A lot of people are bailing out. We've been talking about this in our Now is the Best Time to Take the Bar Exam webinar for a few months. We anticipated this, by the way. None of this is a surprise to you and me. The score changed. It's a pleasant surprise, but other than that, but we expected pretty much everything that's happened here. And because the people who blow up the curve, the Megan Sayas in the room, are taking the exam, it means more opportunity and fewer applicants. I mean, at one point they were talking about what, 9,300 applicants in California. That isn't going to happen. Not on this October 5th and 6th test.
Yeah. And I feel too like you've got extra time to study now, because now we're not only was it pushed back to September, now it's been pushed back to October. The window for studying between that October test and the February is going to be very small, because we've talked about this a bit. They have not announced yet when the results would come out, but with the September test, they were promising the results would be out right before the end of the year. So now with October, I just don't see how they could get them out. I mean, potentially, but I think it would be very difficult to get them out before the end of the year. So you're looking at January and then turning around to February. So really, basically, if you are studying, you have so much time right now to study, versus if you were to wait and say, oh, I don't really want to take that one, I'll just study later. It's going to feel really easy to keep pushing, like kicking that can down the road. And I would say just study now, get the studying in now, and take the exam in October. You have plenty of time, so much time. So take advantage of that.
Yeah, and if for the people who are going to be listening to this later in the podcast, if you haven't registered for a course, you have enough time. You can register and be prepared for that exam date. To do this. So, and we've got people signing up every day. I know some of you are on the podcast or on the webinar today. So definitely, it would encourage people to do this. If you had pushed out to February of 2021 in California, consider pushing back in now that we're in this October 5th and 6th. I think that's our generalized advice.
Yeah. I agree. And Wenda just asked, what about if I'm taking the California attorney's exam?
Well, as far as we know, it'll be one of those 2 days, probably. Well, it depends on what day the NCB wants to give their 100-question multiple choice. If they give that on Wednesday, the 5th, then your test will be on the 6th. If they give it on Wednesday, the 6th, your test will be on Thursday, the 6th, your test will be on Wednesday.
Yeah, but there's also a good question, because they probably, because it's only 100 multiple choice questions, it's not going to be a full day. So you probably will have to just won't do the afternoon or the morning.
Yeah, that's true. Good question. Yeah. Stay tuned. I don't know. I would block off both days, the 5th and the 6th. That's a good point. I think you're right. You would probably need to take it on both days.
Yeah, they'll most likely have to stretch it out.
And then here's another part to this. I'm just spitballing here. Does it? I know you love it when I do this. She says, gritting her teeth. Is it better if you're an attorney applicant? Should you go ahead and take the 100 multiple choice instead of sitting out that part? So that's an interesting question. I have to noodle on that. I really don't know. Normally, I would say no. Don't sit for the MBE if you don't have to. On the other hand, I don't know. 100 questions. Maybe it's not so onerous. Maybe you should go for it. I don't know. We'll think about that. But before the questions start coming, it's an interesting idea. I mean, do you have a strong feeling about that right off the top? No.
No, it didn't even occur to me. So no, I'm not. I wouldn't want to say anything now without thinking it through, kind of what the implications are of that. But Fair enough. It's a good question. All right. Okay, so that's California.